Happy Kwaai Day, everybody. The highlight of your week, I hope. So this is either meeting number 14 or 15. We've lost count, but hey, maybe we can get AI to help us. We've got a lot to cover today. The focus will mostly be on the Scale 21 submission, but also we're now well into Q4, and we're well into the development phase that's already started, but we are still sort of herding cats at the moment. We got some very productive programmers that have rushed ahead, and we are trying to backfill that with some product management rigor. But I think that's par for the course. I'm going to ask Afshin if Afshin, maybe a reflection on we didn't hear. Well, we heard vicariously from your trip when you were away. We saw your posts. Maybe you can just give us 2 or 3 minutes and tell us what you were doing in Europe.
Sure. Yeah. So my other jobs, right? So I was at the University of Rome. Was invited to give a lecture there for stuff related to space biology work and other things. And then in Berlin, I was in a mitochondrial meeting. So of course, your bioenergetics and boost your body. So I mean, I did mention some AI things there and some to people there. So there, whenever I mention Kwaai, the life sciences, their eyes always perk up and ears perk up because they would love to have a digital twin or a lab assistant to help them,
right,
make them more efficient in the lab. So I think that's the nutshell. Whenever I try to promote us to life sciences, everyone's very encouraged, and probably would want to be a guinea pig in our let's say testing runs and things like that.
Fantastic. So that's really good. Thank you also for introducing us to Sylvan. Perhaps you can talk about that conversation that we had with Sylvan.
Sure. I don't know if Sylvan's here. He probably is not. He's probably busy right now. But yeah, Sylvan, he joined us last week. He's in the Bay Area, so he's at NASA Ames Research Center. And he's the project manager of this platform called Gene Lab, which is where all the bioinformatics omics ends up for space biology. So he's been running that now for a while now, 6-7 years, and doing a great job at that. So he's a big AI guy too. I've known Sylvan for 20 years now, 20 plus years. Science-wise, we collaborate a lot. So, and he's a physicist like me background, so we talk the same language, and he's, I think, a lot more experienced programmer than I am. So he's very entrenched in the NASA government world and knows about AI and how they look at it. And what he told us last week, and also the meeting we had on Sunday where we met, is like the government's kind of hesitant on using. They don't even use ChatGPT right now, Span, to use, because they're hesitant that about AI acquiring data that it shouldn't be from the government, things like that. So he was able to convince the AI group there to have Riza come give a talk, and I'll do like a little introduction, because the way he convinced them is like, we want to tell them about how, from my role, these analysis working groups we have. Eventually, I met Riza through that, so they'd be like, oh, okay, the groups we have within NASA fosters these branches of collaborations to people that are now doing this. So I'll introduce him that way, and then so it helps him out too, because he's like, okay.
Yeah. So you said the calendar for external presentations is kind of full for this year.
It'll be January.
It'll be January. So that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that, and pitching Kwaai to NASA is going to be will be a significant milestone.
I think the key is there. They'll probably want to be interested to hear about it, but the key is when we're setting it up, make sure the regulatory, as we're setting it up, make sure that all the regulatory environments of the government is incorporated into our. That way, we don't have to worry about it later. And a year from now, we're like, crap, we didn't think about all this regulatory things the government has, but it's all incorporated at once. We cover all our bases.
Masu has her hand up.
Yeah, so I didn't know about NASA and your interest, but I have a good friend, Chris Mattman, who is like the data scientist, been in NASA for many, many years. If you want, I can just introduce you to them. They're the director of the JPL lab.
Okay.
So I'm sure that he would be interested as well.
Yeah, have him for the group.
Fantastic. Okay, that's really good. Thanks. Okay, so thanks, Afshin. So that was a good update. I'm gonna, if Eunice is on the call. Matt? Why don't I pass over to you? You drive the agenda.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Eunice was Mike and Riza had a Pi architecture meeting on Wednesday. Some early feedback that the calendar we set up last week is just kind of a public, consumable calendar. Certainly didn't get the attendance out. So make sure you join that next week and participate in that. This is where a lot of the technical decision making and technical direction for the product development is going to come from. So please make sure that one's on your calendar. We could send that one out as well as an invitation to all the folks as well as we've done with this one.
Yeah.
Eunice, if you're able to pop off mute and would like to give a quick overview. Oh, there you go.
All right. Brief summary. Wednesday, there was indeed a meeting. Mike, Reza, Masu, and I think Myra.
Yeah, Myra and Cheyenne.
Yeah, Cyan. And for those who don't know, Cyan is a dedicated product owner from the Arcus team, and it was actually a good meeting. It gave all of us a chance to have an idea about what Reza was thinking and provide some feedback. Was more of a collaborative effort to discuss what the end product would look like at the conceptual level. Reza shared his drawings and his flows and basically showed us how he thinks. Scary sometimes, but nevertheless useful. But that's the first step. Initially, when we started working on this from the Arcus side, we were gathering our technical people. But after that meeting, it made it obvious that we need some product ownership and product management. So Cyan is the main point of contact. He's the product owner. And we're going to sign up other people to help with that, just to structure the roadmap and define it in more in detail. And I think the next 2 or 3 meetings would be crucial to defining that vision. Cyan will reach out individually to all people interested to make sure that they can attend the meeting. We'll run some workshops and continue to gather requirements. At the same time, and Cyan can talk about this in a minute, I think he shared it on Slack, that he has a vision on how to proceed once the requirements are gathered, or maybe in parallel, we can start building or prototyping, but I will let Cyan discuss that. So bottom line, Arcus Nexus is bringing the team. Umberto, who joined today, he's one of the senior people from Arcus. We're moving him from an enterprise project to help with Kwaai development. He can introduce himself later if we have time. But the focus will be, let's define the roadmap and let's set the cadence. Then we can divide the work between developers, the volunteer developers from the Kwaai side, and the professional developers from Arcus. So Cyan, you want to share a few things about your vision?
Before Cheyenne, I just want to make sure that Colin and Ian McFarlane and Justin and I know that there were a few other keepers, Brittany as well, that realize that we've now had increased velocity added to our bench, and there's going to be some increased rigor. Distributed projects like this need a measure of rigor, and that's why I welcome having formal product management help us guide this. And so we've got it's going to be it's much needed, but yes. I don't want this to detract from the efforts you're putting in. I think this is going to help in coordinating our efforts, and let's also make sure we. So Cyan, why don't you continue? But then I also want to hear from Mike afterwards to follow up on the conversation he and I had that following that. Cyan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. There we go.
Hey guys. Well, basically, in summary of what I pasted in the channel on Slack, I was trying to analyze with the team how things are actually made, so we can structure an MVP. I try to gather as much data from our past meeting with Reza on what the core of the Kwaai is going to be. So I have this idea that we can break it up so we have an MVP, just the minimum things that we require, such as the database, start training the database, create a module just to extract data from Google or Gmail, and then go ahead and maybe create like an authentication. I know this is something that it's very, I mean, the database of the user has to have like a really secure authentication. However, if we create something that is not as secure right now, we can start playing with it and start discovering new requirements. So I think the focus point here could be that we create something that we can play with, that we can interact with, and that has the minimum things that we require for it. Then we can start adding more features and functionality, security, speed, and all that thing. But now I think we should focus on just the main core of the application. But yeah, for next week, I'll try to bring you guys a roadmap, or not a roadmap, but something more defined, maybe a presentation or something, so we can all brainstorm a little bit more on that.
Ian's got his hand up.
Yeah, to that, I think as long as we also think through at least like we want to stay a little like
Oh, well, we're all
old stuff.
we're not hearing you, Mike, Ian.
Not working. Okay, how about now?
Better.
That's better. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I agree with all that. I agree with getting to a quick MVP, but it's probably worth at least a little bit of a discussion about, and then, like, we don't need to design the end state, but at least thinking about these are going to need to be separate personal data lakes that people control. Yeah. We can make some simple architectural choices that we can fake all of that, but it would be nice to at least have some idea of what direction we're going, because otherwise we're just going to build.
Yeah, we don't want to.
I
hear you, Ian. We don't want to replicate another SaaS solution where your data is in somebody else's proprietary cloud. No,
exactly.
And this was exactly the fundamental difference between the approach we're taking and other solutions. And maybe so Mike had a separate conversation with me afterwards, and we had a call. Mike, perhaps you can just give a summary of what we came away with.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think basically, and Cyan and Eunice, I think I want to loop you guys into that ahead of the Wednesday meeting. But fundamentally, underneath any application, which the personal communication Copilot is an application, underneath that, we need to make sure that we have I guess maybe for lack of a better word, a transportable identity system, and that identity is your intelligence, right? So otherwise, we're going to face a world that's very similar to what we have today, just with AI in it, which means everything that is known about you is segregated into the applications you use, potentially the devices you use. And consequently, your persona is never really owned, and your persona as it trains and feeds into AI applications is different in all these different applications, because it's what they're extracting from you. I think what the opportunity ahead of us, and why this may be more equivalent to the piece that's equivalent to Linux, is thinking about our own AI personas, all the intelligence that we train about ourselves to say this is the way that we want AI to interpret from our perspective, is almost flipping the pyramid of the device, OS, and application architecture or SaaS architecture that exists today. Meaning those exist as platforms that you onboard an identity as part of that platform. And I think for our intelligence to be transportable, it needs to flip the model where it's our personas that are being accessed by the applications versus us creating new personas on every application or device that we go off and use. It's a big sea change.
Big
But
sea
I also-
yeah.
Just let me summarize one last thing.
Yeah.
I also believe that what an operating system looks like in the future and what applications look like in the future are very, very different than what we do and see today. And it's going to be much more about intelligent responses that are tailored to what you're asking for and what you're doing than getting into an application to do it.
Right.
Consequently, this is the foundation of what could be your personal AI OS.
Yes.
And that's really a huge disruptive way to think about this. But I do think it's a worthy aim for us to strive to create an architecture that can be built on top of in that way.
Yeah.
AI processing is going to be in every device.
I want to just bring it home and make it more specific to just so that people just get what Mike just said there. That currently your persona, which is a collection of your preferences, are distributed amongst various proprietary SaaS solutions. For instance, Netflix knows your preferences, your movie preferences, and they own that database or that collection of preferences around you, so that when you create an account on Hulu has to separately learn your tastes and preferences as well. If you instead were to own it, then you would interface with a new streaming platform, and they would instantly know, oh, okay, he likes documentaries and nature and UK crime dramas and so on. Not having to glean that from my my watching patterns. So that's for entertainment. For all sorts of other solutions, SaaS solutions that you engage with, your financial habits, your communication habits, all of these would be separate apps, but it's so important that you own that, you own the data. So Mike talks about inverting the pyramid. Your personal AI is in fact a generic AI, but it's programmed and customized and personalized by your own personal data, which should be private to you. You should own it and maintain it. So I think we've defined a big hairy problem, and I think that's of the right scope and magnitude. What we're trying to do, is identify, okay, what's the first application we're going to develop and bring to market, and that was the conversation we had with Cyan. So there's folks that are doing the broad thinking about, how we're going to build the big personal AI OS, and of course we have to build the first MVP as well. Okay, lots of hands are going up, and whose hand was first? I think Balaji had his hand up first.
Thanks, Reza. My question is more specifically towards: is there a place where the core requirements of the MVP are going to be documented that others can review? Or is it a Slack channel? Is it going to be a document? Where would that be?
We currently have both. There's also a GitHub repo that has some information that we can share with.
I'm going to let Eunice answer, because Eunice and Cyan are going to bring us the rigor, the orthodoxy in software development. Okay, so where is this going to reside? Where are we going to put our repository?
Okay, so I was looking. I think Ian raised his hand first, but to answer that question, and we talked about Confluence, using Confluence and Jira to organize the work, and GitHub as well. So these are the tools we mentioned last time.
Okay, lots of raised hands. We got Sean, we got Ian, and then Kwaai. Okay, Sean, you raised your hand. Yeah. No,
I think Ian was the first one to raise
Ian.
his hand.
Okay, Off you go, Ian. No, nobody wants to talk.
Back to Sean. Go ahead, Sean.
Okay. I think just for this first one, I think it'd be really helpful for us to be super clear on like what's the MVP goal. Is it to say that we built features? Is it to say that we got enough user feedback from the community? Is it a target of developer engagement? Is it a target of like retention and usage? Because like these things will obviously affect the prioritization of what we're building.
Yeah.
And so I do think getting a consensus on like what is the goal of the MVP? What do we want it to actually? How do we want it to land in the world? I think then define all of the prioritization.
It'll be really cool if at the Linux Developer Conference in March in Pasadena, we were to demo an early prototype of the communication assistant. That, to garner more developer engagement, I think that would be a great step forward. So I haven't articulated that as a goal, but now that you've pushed me, that would be fantastic.
Agreed.
Okay. So we've got Kwaai, who's not
Go
spoken.
ahead.
Hello.
Yep, we hear you.
Yeah. Quickly, we talk about how to own our data compared to, for example, Twitter or Facebook or whatever company that have our data. We will never, be able to fight with it, at least for a long time, against them, if I may say. So I think something that we can have is this capacity to integrate all these different data. We can have a system that allow us to make this integration because we will never be able to really forbid them to have our data once we are in their system, right? The other thing too is I was always thinking it's important to think in terms of architecture and the system, how to define a completely distributed control system, which means that each user define the rules of being viewed, of being sharing their data, or rather than to have a central hub that define that, because then we fall into the same issue.
Yeah,
so
we don't want to
defining
own the data lake. You're right. Carry on.
Yeah. So we have to give people, as I mentioned, I think this is maybe a real chance to have a real concept of democracy where each person is really autonomous in this case. So we need maybe to define really more precisely the founding concept of the things before maybe rushing too fast on the MVP, so people understand where we want to go.
Yeah, and I think that was some of the early work that Colin and Brittany did, was actually about how that how you end up owning your own data, and so you in the case of Netflix, for instance, you really only want them to have your preferences at a semantic level. You don't want them to know you watch these individual movies for this period of time and you skipped over this episode and so on. That's way too much detail. But you do want to expose to them at a semantic level, okay, here are my preferences. And that's the sort of thing that AI can enable, but you should end up owning the data.
Well, I'm agree with you, but I don't see how we can prevent them to see what are the movies we like and so on.
So
you see what I mean?
The way that these services have maintained their monopoly is by gleaning that data from our habits. But what it's done is it's actually prevented newcomers from coming into the market. And so if we're going to be a force for breaking down monopolies and adding more competition, enabling more competition, you break down these moats. And customers
No,
owning. Sure.
I'm agreeing, yeah, with you on the goal.
So we don't need to. Sorry, Kai. We don't need to stop Netflix owning the data. They own it already. Okay, but we can enable newcomers.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike's got his hand up, and then we should move on with the agenda. You're muted. Mike, you're muted.
Sorry. I said some brilliant things. No, so just agreeing with you and Kai, but more specifically, a big win for us is to get the data to flow bidirectionally. We need to get their data. They can have their proprietary way that they deal with it, fine. But we need to also take our preferences with us as we're doing things going forward. That's one. Second thing is, I think we're going to have multiple tracks of what we need to develop, just to tag on to what our goal should be, if possible, for scale, is not only to have this demonstration app of this personal assistant, but be able to have the architecture and the APIs for anyone to build their own apps in the open source community on top of this thing that sits underneath it, right? Not into the communicator, but into your data lake. That to me would be a huge win. So I do think we're gonna need multiple tracks of development to make sure that we can accomplish both of those things.
Okay, I like that. I think everyone is in agreement, and I think it'll go down really well at a developer conference if you say, okay, here's an example app that we've created to this personal AI in this personal AI operating system, and here's how you can go and build your own apps. I think that'd be fantastic. Okay, Ruth says I overuse the word fantastic. I'm going to stop doing that. Okay, let's Matt, why don't you help us move the agenda on?
Yeah, sure. So Scale 21 coming up next week, or excuse me, call for papers coming up next week. Made you nervous there, Toby. The Scale call for papers coming up. It's a public call for papers. Anyone is invited to. There is an organization. There's a Slack channel in the Kwaai Slack. If you're interested in submitting, please join that Slack channel. Mike and Riza Riza's already submitted. Riza, do you want to say a few words about your talk?
Yeah, so my talk, I've repurposed the talk, why we need the Linux of AI. Of course, I'm pandering to the Linux Developer Conference, but I think couching it in those terms, I think is going to be a well-pointed, well-targeted call for action, call for participation. If we can buttress that up with a demo of our first MVP, gosh, that'll be a great win. I'm planning a second paper. Maybe I get to it this weekend, and that's these are basically repurposing the papers that we delivered at the summit, the presentations we delivered at the summit, but targeting it more for the Linux developer audience. Kai, I know you said you didn't want to present because you thought it was not the right audience. I don't know. I'd still present on reasoning AI that's not just correlation but has causation in it. I think that's a I don't know if there's a life sciences element to that audience, but I think your paper still will be well received.
Okay, if I have your support, I was thinking the notion of open.
Did you pause there? Kai, your video is paused.
We may have lost Kai.
We may have lost Kai. Okay.
Mike, you want to say?
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Hello.
Yeah, you're
Hello?
back. Yeah. We hear you.
I was saying that there are two facets in the concept of open system. One is the open source itself, and the other one is the transparency of the system so people can understand. So reasoning bring that compared to machine learning. So maybe I can at the same time focus a little bit more on that part, because people talk about explainable AI is because you need to explain. But if at the beginning it's transparent, you don't need to explain it.
Yeah, and the tendency for generative AI at least to hallucinate, we certainly need to we need to come up with something to counter that. Okay, so very good. That there are. Please go and look. You'll see the link on Slack. Go and have a look. We are submitting in the open AI track, and if we get a number of submissions, I think we take over the track, and I think that would also be a good win for us. So look at the dates. It'll also be maybe a great time for us to have a mini summit of our own, or maybe at least an advisory board meeting in Pasadena, March, when this takes place. So that would be cool. Okay.
Mike, about your talk.
Yeah, your deadline's November 1, so you've got this weekend to go and have a look and submit. It's kind of a painful website to submit to, but I struggled through it and I got my presentation in. And of course, you've got between now and March before you actually develop it. So it's a short abstract, it's a long abstract, and maybe just a pointer to a URL that points to an existing presentation. Can somebody send Ty the Slack link, or send the link in Slack? Yeah. Okay. Great. And then let's. So sorry, Eunice, you said you're also going to be your org is going to be submitting a paper.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Do we know the title yet?
Not yet.
Fantastic, Sean. You're gonna propose a talk. That'd be great. I think it'd be great. I think having GUI talk about the progress you've made in the tools space, I think would be wonderful. And you're talking to an open source AI community, so I think it'd be well targeted. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. We plan on hopefully by that time having most of everything we're doing in the open source space and also locally hosted. So
nice. Okay.
It's a great.
Mike, you want to say a few words about yours?
Yeah, real brief. I've been working on mine. I'm going to get it done before the end of this weekend. So that will be submitted. Mostly what is described here, but a little less specific to virtual worlds, more around self-sovereign, authentic AI personas. And my goal would be, as part of what we talked about the demo, is to be able to share a link where people can start to upload into a tool and build their authentic AI persona, so that as developers build applications, there will be people that have their personas to ingest into those. So that would be incredible. And I think other than that, it's really just a little bit deeper dive, more specifically on applications and what it means to have an authentic persona for AI on top of what I presented back at College of Canyons.
Great.
Ferlina, do you want to say a few words about how we can kind of keep track of all this?
Yeah, I think that when you submit that, is there any way that you can add another email address for submissions to know once they're completed or done? I've looked at the website, but not really registered as a vendor. So I don't know if there's a way that we can, once we get the submission details and if it's approved to go through, if we can just gather all that information in one space.
Okay. The way I did it was I cut and pasted all my entries into a Word doc,
Mhm.
And maybe I can share that with you, and maybe everyone else should do that, and then at least Selena knows what we've submitted. Eventually, I think we've got a champion on the inside. His name's Jordan. I'm not sure if he's on the call, and he said, let him know what we've submitted under the Kwaai umbrella, and he will usher that through the organization.
Okay, and that may be something that I can connect with Jordan on and just kind of monitor the progress with him and just be up to date with all the steps.
So there's a short abstract, there's a long abstract, and then there's a letter or a note to the organizers, and that's where you say this is under the Kwaai umbrella, and then they'll know what to do with it. Okay.
Good detail there. Eunice, did you want to share anything before we move on to member voices, or anybody else that might have an thought for a paper? Please do make sure you jump in here as well. Eunice?
On what topic specifically, Matt?
Just curious if you had a topic in mind or wanted to share anything more.
Yeah, the one thing I want to share, Deep and I made progress document. This is more on the organizational side of Kwaai. We're preparing a roadmap to deploy a CRM solution to automate all these tasks of onboarding new members, engagement management, all those things. So we document, I think we're halfway. Is Deep on the call here? Not sure. But anyway, we're collaborating. I think we documented one journey. We have 2 more to go. And the idea is to come next week and share with you our thoughts and open it to comments, collect some feedback, then go back to the drawing board and finalize the plan to roll out a CRM solution. We haven't made a decision yet whether it's Salesforce or not for the people who don't like Salesforce. Could be either Salesforce or Microsoft or some other product, but we made a lot of progress documenting what the typical journey should be, and expect more updates next week.
Thanks, Eunice.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
I just wanted to add.
She's here.
Yeah, thank you, Eunice. That was really great work, the initial document that you set out. And if anybody is curious and they want to give feedback anytime next week, please set up a call with Eunice and myself, and we're happy to give you a preview and get your feedback, get it incorporated now.
Okay.
Thank you, Deep. Thank you, Eunice. Wonderful. Let's move on for some member voices. I do see some new names, and we do have a habit or tradition, excuse me, a tradition of calling people out if you're new here. So a lot of other names too. But Humberto, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, it seems like my name stands up. I was called out a couple of times. Hello, everybody. My name is Humberto. With Arcus Nexus, I'm a computer science engineer that moved into the dark side of management years ago. I've been focusing mostly on software development projects, trying to make sure that we hit our commitments, trying to make sure that we are aligned into our customers' goals, and try to manage all the risks and things that come along the way. So yeah, happy to be here and excited to see how can I contribute to the team. But yeah, that's me. I'm from forgot to add, I'm from Tijuana, Mexico, right across the border with San Diego. And yeah, nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Humberto. Thank you for introducing yourself. Nicholas Martin, you were on last week but couldn't say anything. How about you next?
Hey, everybody. So yeah, I thanks for allowing me to join this. I don't know. my background is I'm a network engineer / security engineer. I'm now in pre-sales for a cybersecurity company, and I don't know really where I would fit in helping out. I just really love the mission statement, I guess, of Kwaai, and want to see where I can help out in some small way. So I've been, networking and security for since the 90s, basically. So yeah.
There's a place for you, Nicholas, for sure.
There's definitely a place. Excellent. Thanks, Nicholas, for participating. And look, if you're on the call and you've not actually filled in the Kwaai sign up form, you should do that, because that gets you added to the member list, and that gets you added to the Slack channel, so you can participate in the conversations, and then you can find your place in the organization. Okay.
I will add one thing. My wife actually has a lot of experience with nonprofits and development and grant writing and all that stuff. So I may try to pull her into this when the
wow,
nonprofit gets fully formed. So
yes, okay, we will need
right.
that. Thank you so much.
Handsome devil. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick. And really great to see Nick's face the very first time at the Kwaai Summit. That was very cool. Marie, I see a new name on the phone. Marie Patterson.
Marie Patterson. Not seen that name before.
Hi, I'm Marie Patterson. I develop software, and I'm just looking to learn more about AI.
Great.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Marie, how did you find out about Kwaai?
A good friend of mine invited me to the call.
Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Good friend indeed.
Toby, would you like to introduce your new Mafia member?
Morty, you want to say hi? Mr. Morty, you there? You want to say hi, or you'll be shy eye?
All right, we'll come back to you. Ty Green is a new name. Ty, you want to say hello?
Well, good morning. Hey, Toby, Reza. Haven't seen you, talked to you in a while.
Ty, we know you well. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm particularly interested in this space. Interestingly enough, I've been contemplating how my background is user experience architecture and design for many, many years on large SaaS to B2C, and I've been contemplating how to, interesting enough, I didn't even know this was going on, how to leverage one's own persona via some type of blockchain method so that individual can own the key in a control release manner to release their data to said in company for a fee. So I've been toying around with that from a UX persona space and how to do it, and this just happened to fall in my lap today, and so I started drawing and figuring out and what the mechanisms look like. So yeah, I'm happy to.
Sounds like you should join the product team, Ty.
Yeah, I have a paper concept in mind. I actually started writing. Actually, so interesting enough and I just happened to stumble. I was like, oh, okay, I need to learn more about this.
So Ty, what you need to do is on the Kwaai.ai site, there's the join button. You fill in the form that gets you enrolled into the Slack channels and so on, and you can help participate. Okay, and that goes out for everybody that might have been invited to the call but hasn't actually joined the organization. And so great. And then you can, once you're on Slack, you can even create your own channel. If you say, oh, this channel doesn't exist, and then you broadcast it in the general channel so that everybody sees it, and then now you start a conversation around a subtopic. Okay, well done. Who's not spoken up? Newcomers. We want to hear from new voices. Otherwise, we're going to pick on people.
If PV has not yet spoken, and I'd like to. No, that's the only other one. Let's open it up, for open conversation here. If it gets to be a cacophony, we can use our hand raise. But anybody else want to say hello? Talk about something you're working on?
I'm going to say something. Maybe it's time, and I'm not sure when it will be time, but for us to open up another chapter either on the East Coast or in EMEA, because I got a message from a few people saying, hey, we'd love to participate, but
the time zone.
Time zone, 10 a.m. Pacific is not working. And even some people said, hey, you know, can you change it up? Yeah.
I'm willing to be on that team. Like right now, me and Ian sometimes, but me, I'm on from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. with our offshore team. So if that fits within the window, I could definitely participate, you know, on the leadership team for that.
Right.
I think
well, okay. I
would be interesting to explore. You know, as a nonprofit, lots of nonprofits, you know, get together, hold meetings in the evenings to, you know, give people time away from work. It'd be interesting to explore if maybe we could even do something that's, you know, try to be friendly, you know, to U.S. time zone, but in the evening as well.
Yeah.
To be friendly to the EU time zone and others.
Yeah. So planting that seed in your mind, and maybe we'll think about that. Maybe in the new year we kick off a chapter in a different time zone. They can have their meetings, and we can watch their recordings, and then it's yeah.
You might want to think of also having meetings in person in the East Coast too. That way people could alternate, because East Coast people going to the West Coast obviously is a little bit more difficult for me. And
Yeah,
others.
no, I agree, and we should maybe time it around some conference or something like that.
Well, one thing I wanted to bring up, I could probably host, if you give enough advance, I could probably do it at Broad Institute. I could probably find a nice room there, and we could even have a seminar there. I could probably have a big conference room, and we could have some of the Brodies, if we call them. They might be interested in hearing about it, and getting people from Broad Institute involved, I think might be a big plus, since you got a lot of life sciences computer folks there. But think about it, maybe give me 3-4 months in advance, and then we could plan it accordingly.
Right. This might be a Q2 next year. You also think about the weather.
Summertime. My wife
You guys
would.
in the West Coast don't want to come out here in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Mike.
Well, my wife would get around the New York trip anytime, actually. So let me know.
This is just a general information announcement for those that are interested in kind of trends that are happening on the device side. With AI, I would encourage you to go take a look at Qualcomm's Snapdragon announcement from earlier this week. They've launched an entire new platform that has a pretty advanced AI. I used to call them co-processors. I guess they call them separate processors now, but and it can handle on device. I think it was like 10 billion of 10 billion parameters. And quite a big developer community, including Microsoft, behind it. The most interesting thing is that chipset has also been launched as a Windows PC chipset. So not just for handsets. And according to their benchmarks, it's the fastest PC processor for mobile that's out there, and the most energy efficient. Faster than the M2 Apple chips, faster than Intel's i9 mobiles. So really, really impressive launch. But I think the implication is that personal AI is going to happen on the edge also, not just
in the cloud.
And the proliferation of AI processors, co-processors, are going to be everywhere. So it's good stuff.
Great.
Love that. Anybody else like to chime in and say hello or chat about something that's of interest this week? Lots of interesting stuff going on out there.
Well, the Get Cracking conference was online. They had a lot of AI related developer tools, if anybody's interested in that.
So Balaji and Sean have their hands up.
Oh, I didn't know we were raising hands. Sorry.
Hi, I just wanted to, I was just mulling over the inverting the pyramid concept that we were talking about. And even before bringing our own data back to our identities are split. Like, I mean, I have 10 usernames and passwords, and Google has version of me. And so it all starts with your identity management, right? So I'm asking this question in a way, like, are we going to borrow something from the blockchain world to I mean, even there's many different ways of doing this. So is there anything specific that's going to make sure that there's one identity that I keep and use that to authenticate, or is there going to be still many of these?
I know Mike's chomping at the bit to respond to that, but Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious if anybody is going to the OpenAI Dev Conference next week. That's it.
Where's it taking place?
It's in San Francisco.
Yes,
November 6th. I might be going, but if anybody does go, I'd love to see notes, and I'll do it if I end up there.
Ian, I think
Okay.
I know it was on our radar, so if we end up going.
Great. Mike, yeah, you want to say something there?
No, registration's now closed.
I was just going to respond to Balaji, which is yes. I think fundamentally underneath the architecture, the cartoon architecture that was presented, that I presented, is a blockchain-oriented identification system. It's a code base and a patent that my startup has, and Riza and I have talked about it being part of the contributions that I might make to the organization once we get all the documents formalized and everything. So I think it needs to be, quite honestly, and we need to be looking at IPFS and other data storage formats that are also decentralized and distributed, because ultimately where all of that data lake is stored needs to be secured and decentralized as well. So that's all part of this architecture. I just haven't detailed a lot of it because before I do that, I just want to make sure we have all of our legal things in place between the organization group and code and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. And we're moving things along, and but we shouldn't. We should wait until all that's formalized before we receive any code contributions from corporations. And I know Sean, you also expressed a desire to do something similar. We should also follow up. Once Kwaai is properly a non-profit, I think it'll be a more orderly transaction. Or
Yeah, Riza, why don't we wrap up here? And yeah, if there are any updates on that note, we haven't talked about that in a couple weeks, I think. Nonprofit status, filing status, anything there?
Yeah.
Riza, you want to wrap us up?
Yes, thanks so much. This is the day we look forward to. Look, I understand everybody's got day jobs when we're taking some time away. I'd also ask you to be above board with your employer and say, hey, I'd like to contribute to an industry body, a nonprofit, and I'd like to spend at least an hour a week on that, maybe one day a quarter for a summit. And so that's the level of contribution we're looking for from people. If you can contribute more than that, that's fantastic. And it's not just developers. We're looking for all sorts of skills. A big volunteer organization, as it starts getting bigger, the administration overhead becomes significant. I appreciate all of the individuals that are participating. You're all self-selected, high energy individuals that are passionate, and you care, and that's why you are contributing. This is not a for-profit entity. It's not a startup. It's not something where you are contributing because you're getting somebody controls your paycheck and you need to you need to toe the line. No, this is a volunteer organization, and all voices are welcome and respected, and we respect the time that you are contributing to it. So thank you so much. I keep saying it's the highlight of my week. and I hope it's yours as well. And when we look back, maybe a year from now, we'll see what cultural significance we've contributed to in the area of AI and AI democratization, democratizing AI. We pondered on that term in the advisory board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and democracy has got a kind of a bad rap, and we decided to say personalization. But I think ultimately it's just a way of sugaring a pill, that it really is democratization. We are trying to give everyone a voice, and we're trying to be a counterweight to the increased monopolization of AI. And we fancy ourselves as the Linux of AI. And I welcome all of your contributions. I'm going to stop ranting there, and maybe somebody else will speak up.
That was more of a rave than a rant, Riza.
Thanks so much. Great. Well, I'll give you back the last couple of minutes, and so we can get on with our day jobs.